right, and we're back for another N.y.a show, and make sure I get my sound switched up. Like I said, I hope that we are well into the weekend by this point. I don't know if I talked about a rough week or work was a little rough. I don't know how work was for y'all. Please drop down a couple of 1 through 5 how that work week was for you, because it was a struggle this week when it came to the work week. But by the time that this video drops, it will be a beautiful weekend. You know, Lord willing, we out there all enjoying ourselves, just having a great time. Now, how a mother is balancing life in the pursuit of dreams. The interview with actress Breyonna and Thomas is available on Spotify by Ajay, Tambe, as well as Literally Is No Pressure, episode 154. Here available on YouTube with peace_peace. All those links will be below. Be sure that you do check out my last couple of shows that I did or last couple of weeks. Please always support the show, share them out, because these are my time stamps in time. These will be the things that I look back with my kids and people in my family when I come back to these random episodes and be like, look, this is what we were talking about, and this is what was happening. And I took time to document these things just because I found them important. And today was a big one, like I said, because for the first time ever, a former president was now convicted of a felony, and now that man is Donald Trump. Please let me know what your thoughts are on that story. That was the first thing that came out on Thursday night. So be sure that you drop your thoughts on that, as well as check out that video if you haven't already seen it. Another story that I got is during the attack on Pearl Harbor, this Black sailor broke the rules to save lives. Doris Miller's story is legendary, straight legendary, by Upworthy staff. This is from Upworthy.com. When the attack on Pearl Harbor began, Doris was working laundry duty on the USS West Virginia. He enlisted in the Navy at age of 19 to explore life outside of Waco, Texas, and to make some extra money for his family. But the Navy was segregated at the time, so Miller, an African-American, and other sailors of color like him weren't allowed to serve in the combat positions. And instead, they worked as cooks, stewards, cabin boys, and mess attendants. They received no weapons training, and they were prohibited from firing guns. Don't put your hand on one. As the first torpedoes failed, Miller had an impossible choice: follow the rules or help defend the ship. For Miller, the choice was obvious, like it would have been for anybody during that time. Care what you said, I can't pick on no damn gun. My life is at risk, just like the rest of them on here. Let's see. First, he reportedly carried wounded sailors to safety, including his own captain. But there was more to be done. In the heat of the aerial attack, Miller saw an abandoned Browning 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun on deck, and immediately decided to fly in the face of segregation in military rooms to help defend his ship in the country. Though he had no training, he manned the weapon and shot at the enemy aircraft until his gun ran out of bullets, potentially downing downing as many as 6 Japanese planes in the melee. Even Miller himself didn't know his effort was successful. It wasn't hard. He said after the battle, I just pulled the trigger and she worked fine. I had watched the other ones. I had watched the others with these guns. I guess I fired her for about 15 minutes. I think I got one of those Japanese planes. They were diving pretty close to us. Look at that animation there. Look at that. That is beautiful. And that's an animation of what was happening during that attack. And that's him right there, Dory. December 7th, 1941. Remember, Pearl Harbor. Original newspaper reports herald a hero Negro messman at Pearl Harbor, but no one knew who Miller was. I never heard this story in my life. No time we even talked about Pearl Harbor in school do I remember talking about this man. The Pittsburgh Courier, an African-American paper, N.y.a circulation, sent up a reporter to track down and identify the brave sailor, but it took months of digging to uncover the messman's identity, because I'm pretty sure back then, during those days, you had to keep talking to people. It wasn't just so the world wasn't as connected as it is now. It wasn't as easy to get these interviews and get all these additional information that they get to put these stories together. Eventually, Miller was identified. He was called a hero by Americans of all stripes and colors. He appeared on radio shows and became a celebrity in his own right. Yo. Yeah, it's tough. Miller's heroism and bravery didn't go unnoticed in Washington, D.C. either. In March 1942, Republican John Dingell, a Democrat from Michigan, introduced a bill authorizing the president to present Miller with the Congressional Medal of Honor. Senator James Mead introduced a similar measure in the Senate. While Miller did not receive the Congressional Medal of Honor, he became the first African-American sailor to receive the Navy Cross. This marks the first time in this conflict that such high tribute has been made in the Pacific Fleet to a member of his race, and I'm sure the future will see others similarly honored by brave at said Pacific Fleet. Admiral Chester the midst following Miller's penning ceremony. So, what a great man, great heroism. Following a brief tour of the country, giving speeches and pushing war bounds, Miller returned to the Navy life. In May 1943, Miller returned for duty on Tambe, an escort carrier. Look at that big piece of ship, half ship that's out there with these these aircrafts that are on it in the middle of the ocean. Imagine how much weight that is and how it gets nerve wracking. That could have been at times going across those waves back in those days, with the building and technology back then. On November 24th, during Operational Galvanic, a Japanese, oh Lord, torpedo struck the Western Bay, sinking the ship. 644 men were presumed dead. 272 survived. Miller did not. On December 7, 1943, 2 years after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Miller's parents received word of their son's death. Imagine that. Imagine that. Doris Miller gave his life for a country that didn't always love him back. After his death, he received a Purple Heart, the Pacific Campaign Medal, the American Defense Service Medal, Fleet Class, and the World War II Victory Medal. There is also a frigate, and a neighborhood on the U.S. Naval Base in Pearl Harbor named in his honor. Though his Navy Cross was never elevated to a Congressional Medal of Honor, as recently as 2014, the Congressional Black Congress moved to waive the statute of limitations to make that possible. That would be great. Look at that. Above and beyond the call of duty. Absolutely. And then went back out there years later because that's what he did. That's what he did. Dang, I never heard this story before. Received the Navy Cross at Pearl Harbor, May 27, 1942. Doris Miller. This picture is courtesy of the U.S. National Archive and Records Administration, which has so much information and stuff that's on file that we argue over so many different things, but it's all these records that's on file that are open for us to go and look at ourselves. While there are medals, movies, and statues remembering Miller, it's important to remember to honor that man himself, a 22-year-old Black sailor who set aside the rules to do what was right. Poet Gwendolyn Brooks wrote a poem from Miller's perspective, the conclusion of which perfectly captured the young hero's courage in the face of bigotry and uncertainty. Naturally, the important thing is I helped save them and a part of their democracy, even if I had to kick their law into their teeth in order to do that for them. And I am feeling well and settled in myself because I believe that it was a good job, despite this possible horror that they might have preferred the preservation of their law in all its sick dignity and their knives to the continuing of their creed and their lives. This article originally appeared on 12/6/2016. Once again, I've never heard of this man, Doris Miller. Not one single story. We learned about Pearl Harbor in school. I do not remember him being mentioned at all. So it is important that I highlight stories like this when they come about. This is good. This is on the positive side. Rest in peace to Doris, and may his legacy continue to live on. It's the N.y.a show. Let me know what your thoughts are. Y'all got to be sure to share this one out and get it around to your people about Doris Miller. This is part of our history here in the States, and a man that went above the call of duty when it came to taking up for this country here. It's the N.y.a show. Please let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys on the next show.